All right, so I think we're just going to get started now. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's forward motion session. In 2023, TIO is encouraging forward motion to ensure we're providing our members and our stakeholders with the most current and relevant resources to allow them to be successful at the pace at which they are ready. Forward Motion is the title of our stakeholder call series, and these will be scheduled on an as-needed basis, featuring presentations from industry experts on a specific topic, event, opportunity, or service that you may want to be involved in to make your business succeed. Forward Motion will also feature industry updates by the TIO team when applicable that allow you to have current information required to operate your business. We recognize that our work as an industry, a business, and as leaders, and the work of our community partners takes place on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Cree, and Haudenosaunee. We acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover this territory we now call Ontario, and we are treaty people. We are thankful the original hosts welcome visitors to work, live, and benefit in these territories. And we are thankful for the Anishinaabe, Cree, and Haudenosaunee who have cared for these territories for thousands of years. We are thankful for the Indigenous community who continues to celebrate the strength of Ontario. Today, we have the pleasure of having Jasmine Chi from Tourism HR Canada to kick off our newest Forward Motion series, Building a Resilient and Vibrant Workforce. She will share with us some tips, resources, benefits, and success stories of hiring internationally trained workers to help fill seasonal roles. Now, I want to hand things over to Jasmine. So, Jasmine, over to you.
Thank you. So I will start sharing my screen first. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this session about building a resilient and vibrant workforce series. So my name is Jiaxuan Qi. You can call me Jasmine. I'm the Senior Manager, Program Development and Innovation at Tourism HR Canada. Tourism HR Canada is a pan-Canadian organization leading the initiatives relevant to activity-driven groups and dedicated to building a world-class tourism workforce. Our goal is to support the recovery and growth of Canada's visitor economy with a skilled, diverse, and inclusive resilient workforce. The Building a Resilient and Vibrant Workforce series is proudly presented by Tourism HR Canada's Discovery Tourism Initiative in partnership with the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. And we are very fortunate to receive the funding from Government Canada for the support to make it possible. This series was created to provide information to you, tourism employers of all sizes across Canada. We'll be sharing practical tools and information on how to make strategic business decisions related to workforce and HR management in the wake of the pandemic. Over the next months, you will be receiving the information on topics such as retaining employees, best practices for compensation, building a blended workforce, and attracting, building, and retaining an Indigenous workforce. So today's topic is about building a seasonal workforce. We'll begin with a look at Canada's overall labor market and the labor shortage that has businesses across Canada facing. From there, we'll move on to part of the solution with a focus on tapping into international talent for seasonal roles. We'll review the opportunities to hire internationally trained workers who are living in Canada, as well as workers living overseas. For both opportunities, I'll share practical resources that you'll be able to use right away in your business. After that, we'll touch on the benefits of having a diverse workforce, along with some real-life examples from the Canadian tourism industry. We'll close the webinar with links to more information and the next date of the next webinar, and also wrap up with 15 minutes for Q&A. So as well, this webinar will be recorded and you will be able to access the recording and the presentation at tourismhr.ca later this week. So let's get started. We have a lot of ground to cover. As you know, the COVID pandemic had a significant impact on Canada's workforce. In 2020, Canada's overall unemployment rate spiked to 9.5%, even higher than unemployment rates seen during the 2008 financial crisis. And in the tourism sector, the unemployment rate was even much higher, soaring to 16.5%. Undoubtedly, our sector was significantly impacted by travel restrictions, business closures, and other public health measures. Many businesses had to reduce their hours or close temporarily or permanently their businesses, which unfortunately forced tourism owners and operators to lay off staff. In February 2019, before the pandemic, there was just over 2 million workers in the sector. By April, about 10 weeks into COVID, there was a loss of over 880,000 workers. These displaced workers were accounted for nearly 1/3 of all Canadians whose jobs were affected. By year's end, tourism jobs dropped to 1,570,600, a loss of 22% of the workforce. Now, 3 years on, demand for tourist services and products is on rise, but the labor force isn't coming back. Many tourism workers who lost their jobs have found employment in other sectors, or they've left the workforce altogether. As a result, tourism employers are struggling to find workers to fill open positions. Today, there are still about 210,000 vacancies in the sector, and this will grow over the summer. We are not alone in this situation. Tourism employers are competing in a very tight labor market with employers across all sectors, and it's only going to get worse. By the end of this year, it is projected that Canada will be short 2.3 million workers. Furthermore, it's projected that Canada's labor supply will fail to meet these demands. I know that it's very essential to fill those vacant roles on your team in the short term, but I'd like to stress the importance of zooming out, looking at in a bigger picture to create a long-term hiring plan. This will help you attract and retain a resilient team so you can rebuild and grow your business. So the next slide has more data points. This data comes from the report recently released on February 24th. You could find the report on THRC's website. Currently, the tourism sector is comprised of 1.85 million workers across Canada. Compared to the high water mark in February 2019, just before the pandemic, at 2.14 million workers. Of the 5 industries you can see from the chart, the accommodation sector lags in recovery over all others, still down by nearly 24% compared to 2019. And let's take a quick look at Ontario. A few selected data points will be shared here. The total number of tourism workers in Ontario in 2022, our most current data, is 713,333 workers, which is more than 35% of the total tourism employment in Canada. In terms of recovery or percentage of change of employment over 2019, Ontario is doing much better than the Canadian average overall for accommodation and transportation industries, but less so in food and beverage services industry. On average, based on the research sample, wages have increased by 14% in both accommodation and transportation, and 17% in recreation and entertainment industry. This is higher than the increases found in most industries in past 2 years. That said, the average hourly wage is lower on the front end and just on average on the top end. And adding to this, in January, some of our research on business impacts show that most businesses in the sector still face strong headwinds. From the report, you can see 95% of the respondents still face business challenges. 77% of them have increased their costs. 62% of them are experiencing labor issues, and 39% of the businesses are facing financial challenges. Labor shortages actually have a huge impacts on businesses. They mean tourism businesses are experiencing higher operating costs and reduced profits. Owners and operators are foregoing investments and losing the ability to compete in the marketplace. The staff they have is quickly burning out, and the service standards are dropping. You may be very familiar with all of the statements I just described based on your real life experiences. And according to our State of the Industry Recovery study, 46% of tourism industry businesses have job vacancies, and 64% are having trouble recruiting workers. 62% of businesses report that they are either currently experiencing difficulty finding qualified, reliable employees, or they have this situation in the past 4 months. We may wondering why is this happening? There are several reasons for the labor shortage in the tourism industry. Of course, the main issue is an inadequate supply of workers to fill jobs, which is partly due to demographic changes in the labor market. Canada's population is aging. We all know about that. The baby boomer generation is retiring, and there aren't enough younger workers entering into the workforce to replace them. Another issue is the barriers to employment still exist, such as the lack of accommodation, affordable housing in some tourism destinations, which makes it difficult for workers to find accommodations, and also things like unaffordable child care, which may also become challenges for especially women workers and specifically for immigrant women. Finally, the summer tourism season has extended, which brings its own labor challenges. The new peak season opens in early May and runs through to late October. It's longer than before. And since it encroaches on the school year, the longer peak season means we can no longer only rely on summer students to build our seasonal workforce. For businesses to survive and start to be profitable once again, you must consider innovative approaches to filling your job vacancies. The more adaptable you become, the better chances to success you will gain in increasingly tight labor market. We all know that tourism is a resilient and creative industry. If we can find the courage to try new approaches, we'll be able to recover, rebuild, and thrive in the new post-pandemic economy. For example, given how the pandemic changed the nature of work, employers can focus on innovative working models like the blended workforce, flexible work schedules. We can also offer competitive wages and attractive benefits and incentives. This also includes providing opportunities for professional development and career advancement. These ideas and many others will be covered as part of the series. The most important thing to remember is that we can't expect to go back to the way things were before the pandemic. We need to be flexible and adapt to the changing nature of work in order to attract and retain employees. And the truth of the matter is, Canada's available domestic workforce won't meet our sector's demand. We need to hire internationally trained workers to build our workforce for this summer. International talent can play a critical role in filling the labor gap while benefiting the industry in a variety of ways. When you hire international workers, you will experience tangible benefits to your business and also your bottom line. Fortunately, there is a vast pool of internationally trained talent that can not only fill vacancies, but can also enrich and improve your businesses. This talent pool includes talent already living in Canada, such as immigrants, resettled refugees, international students, displaced persons, and people with open work permits, as well as workers who are living overseas. There are so many benefits actually to both course of action, but it's important to know that it can take a lot longer to hire talent living outside of Canada. So it's better to plan it in advance. Whichever course of action you choose for your business, Canada's flexible immigration system and innovate programs can help you attract and retain the right talent for you. This immigration system is an excellent way to support your hiring needs and to help drive economic growth. Now I'm going to talk about several immigration streams that you can access for workers in the tourism sector. The immigration system can be very daunting and hard to understand. We all know that. To help you, Tourism HR Canada has created a series of infographics. You can see it from the screen that you can download for free. Later, I will share the UR code and the links so you can find it for your own needs. Just to illustrate an example from one of the infographics. This one shows you the different immigration streams that can help with seasonal jobs and those that can help you fill permanent positions. And other infographics focus on the process to apply for workers in a specific stream. Here is the UR code. You can scan the code so you can access to the infographics on our website. Okay, so let's get into some details on the immigration programs you can use. To address the labor shortage Canadian businesses are facing, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which also short as IRCC, released an immigration plan to grow the economy and help businesses and public understand the important role immigrants play in Canadian society and economy. In 2022, Canada welcomed over 405,000 newcomers, the most our country has ever welcomed in a single year. The new immigration levels plan released last year with annual targets, the largest ever, growing to 500,000 in 2025, aims to address economic and labor force needs through the immigration system, specifically designed to help businesses find workers and attract the skills needed in key sectors. Some highlights of the plan include an increased focus on attracting newcomers to different regions of the country, including small towns, rural communities, also increase regional programs to address targeted local labor market needs through the Provincial Nominee Program, the Atlantic Immigration Program, and the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. From the tourism perspective, newcomers to Canada represent a significant amount of our tourism labor force. Landed immigrants make up about 30% of tourism workers today. More than 1 in 4 workers in the food and beverage sector are immigrants. Immigrants account for 53% of all business owners with paid staff in the food and beverage sector across Canada. In Ontario, 59% of business owners in the food and beverage sector are immigrants, and the percentage is 61% in BC and 80% in Northwest Territories. So you can see the importance of immigrants plays in our sector. When we are thinking about hiring internationally trained workers, there are 2 main streams to consider. One stream is made up of workers already living in Canada, such as immigrants, resettled refugees, international students, and people with open work permits. The other is made up of workers living overseas who could come to Canada to work either temporary or seek their permanent residence. Let's begin by exploring the benefits of hiring internationally trained workers living in Canada first. Immigrant professionals bring with them good education, global networks, and rich experiences. Nearly 60% of working-age new immigrants aged 25 to 64 hold a bachelor's degree or higher. And because they are already living in Canada, they can start to work immediately without having to seek a work permit or visa. It's faster than filling job vacancies by hiring talent living overseas. As well, newcomers living in Canada has already interacted with local community and certain workplaces, which make them more familiar with our workplace culture. Most of them possess adequate language skills, which can make the onboarding process smoother and more efficient. The 2016 census shows that 79% of refugees speak English, and 83% of refugees aged 25 to 64 own high school diploma and above. They are really an invaluable source of workers for tourism sector we need to consider. I'd like to introduce 4 groups of internationally trained workers living in Canada. These 4 groups are domestic immigrants and resettled refugees, people with open work permits, displaced persons from Ukraine, and international students. Let's begin talking about immigrants and resettled refugees first. These individuals bring a range of skills and experiences to the table, and many have completed education and training programs in their home countries. Some of them even have Canadian education and credentials. And this situation also applies to people with open work permits. They also speak multiple languages, which can be a huge asset for tourism businesses that serve a wide range of customers. Immigrants and resettled refugees and the people with open work permit, they are entitled to work for any employer right away. And these people with open work permit holders also include refugee claimants, people who have made a claim or protection as a refugee and their families. To connect with this demographic, you can contact immigrant settlement agencies in your region. Settlement agencies will actually help newcomers and refugees find their services they need in the province, including making connections with prospective employers. You can also seek resources and support from the National Network of Immigrant Employment Councils. We call them IECs. This national network includes 10 organizations across Canada, shown on the slide. They can provide training and support to employers like yourself on best practices for recruiting and integrating immigrants into your workplace. Working with an IEC, you'll gain access to a wide range of tools and resources that can help you navigate the hiring process and develop effective retention strategies. In your local level, your existing employees might be able to refer you to internationally trained workers in their community and networks, as well as associations and community partners that help connect employers with potential employees. You may also consider registering for a job fair to get in front of promising candidates in your region, community, or sector. Finally, universities and colleges provide lots of services, including bridge to work programs and placement services that connect international talent with employers. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on an immigrant success story that highlights just how much newcomers to Canada can contribute to our country. I'm sure you've heard about the business called Peace by Chocolate, a company based in Nova Scotia. Its CEO, Tarek, was born in Syria. His father had a chocolate business that grew to become the second largest chocolate factory in the Middle East. But in 2012, the factory was bombed during an airstrike and Tarek's family lost everything. The family immigrated to Canada and rebuilt their business in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. Less than 10 years later, Peace by Chocolate ships their products around the world. Their story has been made into a movie, and many books have been written about their success. But more importantly, Peace by Chocolate has committed to hiring 50 refugees at their facilities across Canada and will provide mentorship and guidance to 10 refugee startups to develop their businesses. As Tarek says, immigrants come to contribute and give back to the country they are proud to call home. So this story really shows how immigrants contribute to our society and economic, and how they pay back by what they receive and pay it forward. So let's shift gears a little and talk about another demographic of people seeking work in Canada. Displaced persons from Ukraine. Since 2022, more than 132,000 Ukrainian nationals have come to Canada from the flee from the conflict in their country. Our government has established the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel, which gives Ukrainians and their family members free extended temporary status. As part of this initiative, Ukrainians and their families can apply for an open work permit, which is valid for up to 3 years and enables them to work for any employer in Canada. In addition to your regular recruitment channels, you can recruit Ukrainians through Job Bank. This is a job match website managed by the Government of Canada. This slide just illustrates how you can register and start posting positions on Job Bank. First of all, you need to search for Job Bank or go to the URL listed, and under the Help tab, you can select Job Bank support. Then you will see a job done list where you can select jobs for Ukraine. When you scroll down, you can select to go to this page. And finally, here's everything you need. Just fill out the blanks, and if you find that you need help, just trace back your steps, and you will see there are links and ways to get assistance from IRCC. Note that the jobs advertised through Jobs for Ukraine are available to the public. They are available to anyone who is legally entitled to work in Canada. As well, any Canadian citizens and permanent residents can also apply for these jobs through Job Bank. So now let's talk about international students. As we all know that Canada is the third leading destination for international students. In 2019, there were more than 640,000 international students in Canada at all levels of study. Wherever you are located, there is probably a college or university close by that offers hospitality and tourist programs, as well as international students eager to join our industry. Our industry is really a key source of employment for international students to Canada, and young people make up about 31% of Canada's tourism workforce. Thanks to IRCC's new temporary policy, eligible international students can work for a qualified Canadian employer for more than 20 hours a week off campus until December 31st this year. This is a temporary lifting of the 20-hour per week cap, which will help alleviate pressure on the labor market for the coming summer season. To qualify, students must fulfill 4 requirements. They must have a valid study permit, be a full-time student enrolled at a designated learning institution at the post-secondary level, or in Quebec, a vocational program at the secondary level. Finally, they must be studying in a program that is academic, vocation, or professional training that leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate that is at least 6 months long. That's the requirements for the students. Foreign students who have completed their program of study at an eligible Canadian school can apply for a post-graduation work permit. The graduates from Canadian programs, they have this post-graduation work permit, which allow them to work for any eligible employer in Canada for up to 3 years. Now let's switch gears and talk about hiring international talent living overseas. To meet your business growing labor needs over the peak summer season, you may want to hire internationally trained workers living overseas if you couldn't find enough workers living in Canada. There are a variety of temporary and permanent immigration programs you can use to fill vacant roles. It's important to note that it can take some time to process applications. For example, it can take weeks to process the application for a temporary worker and months to process the application to support permanent residency. So if you decide to take this route, you need to plan your hiring in advance and act upon your plan as soon as possible to make sure your employees are in place in time for the peak season. Let's start with hiring temporary foreign workers. There are quite a few programs that let you fill temporary labor shortages when no qualified Canadian citizens or permanent residents are available. The temporary foreign worker program may be very familiar with all of our businesses already. They offer a variety of streams, and different streams require different labor market information assessment application process. We call it LMIA. I'm going to discuss 3 streams which are the most relevant to our tourism businesses needs: the high wage stream, the low wage stream, and the permanent resident stream. This chart contains the main differences for the 3 streams. First, the high wage streams. This is a good choice when the wage you are offering meets or exceeds the provincial or territorial median hourly wage. You can find the median hourly wage chart on IRCC's website. For this stream, you can request an employment duration of up to 3 years. If you choose this stream, you need to submit a transition plan with your LMIA. The transition plan describes the activities that you undertake to recruit, retain, and train Canadian and permanent residents first. And this is how you demonstrate you don't have enough workers from a domestic source. And then this plan helps you to explain how you can reduce your business's reliance on the temporary foreign worker program. It can take up to 34 business days to process a high wage stream applications. The low wage stream is available when the wage you are offering is below the provincial or territorial median hourly wage. For this stream, you can request employment duration of up to 2 years. It's important to note that you'll be subject to a 20% cap on the proportion of temporary worker you can hire. On average, it takes about 36 business days to process a low-wage stream applications. As you may also hear about the temporary policy, accommodation and food services employers are eligible for a cap limit of 30% for applications submitted between April 30th, 2022 and April 30th, 2023. These caps end in April this year, which is only 1 month left. Finally, the stream relevant to our sector is the permanent resident stream, which allows you to apply for a dual intent labor market information assessment to support your new hires application for both permanent temporary work permit and their permanent visa. If you are interested in leveraging the temporary foreign worker program, you can start by applying to Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, for an LMIA. Note that if you are located in British Columbia or Manitoba, you also need to register with the province to hire temporary foreign workers. For high wage and low wage streams, there is a 1,000 processing fee for each position. This processing fee is waived for permanent residents, LMIAs. You can submit your application up to 6 months before the anticipated start date. When you apply, make sure that you've included all the requested information. Be sure to keep the original documentation and only send copies with your application to IRCC and ESDC. Once you get a positive LMIA, you can provide a copy of the confirmation letter to your worker you've hired and advise them to apply for a work permit. So now I'd like to talk about the International Experience Canada program. This program applies to you if you'd like to hire international talent without an LMIA. The IEC is a reciprocal program that allows Canadian youth to travel and work in partner countries and for youth in partner countries to do the same in Canada. The program is designed to promote cultural exchange and offer young people the opportunity to gain work experience in a different country. By hiring through the IEC program, Canadian tourism industry employers can access a pool of skilled and motivated workers who are eager to experience Canada's culture and work environment. For the purpose of this program, a youth is defined as someone between the ages of 18 and 35 years old. There are 3 streams under this program: the young professional stream, the international co-op stream, and the working holiday stream. To hire someone in the young professional stream, you need to offer them a job that's classified in the training, education, experience, and responsibilities. We call it the tier category 0, 1, 2, or 3 of the National Occupational Classification. These include management roles, jobs that usually require a university degree, college diploma, apprenticeship, or more than 6 months of on-the-job training. Tourism sector jobs that fall in these categories usually include food and beverage managers, hotel general managers, and assistant managers, and travel agency managers or reservation supervisors. The international co-op stream requires that a job is offered to a post-secondary student who needs the job, work placement, or internship to finish their program of study. Both of the streams require the employer-specific work permit. And finally, participants in the working holiday stream, they have open work permit. They can work for any employer, which enable you to use the same hiring process you are typically use. These are the information about the IEC. Other programs also existing in the temporary programming about hiring temporary international talent, including the Mobility Francophone program, which makes it easier to hire French-speaking or bilingual workers outside of Quebec. However, this program only applies to jobs as under the tier 0, 1, 2, 3, mainly focused on the management roles. And the last option I'd like to cover today is supporting international students, graduates, and employees in obtaining their permanent residence in Canada, like through the long-term permanent streams. I know this is starting to feel like information overload on the various immigration program streams, but bear with me. The idea is to provide a good overview and get you thinking about your options. And you will have the infographics to go back on later. Now, the express entry option. This is an excellent way to solve your long-term labor shortage challenges, all while helping something fulfill their goal of living in Canada. The express entry system processes immigration applications from skilled workers. There are 3 immigration programs under express entry as illustrated on the slide. Express entry candidates complete an online profile. If they don't have a job offer, they register with the Government of Canada's job bank, and they can also network directly with recruiters and employers to find their jobs. When you find the candidate you'd like to hire, you provide an invitation to apply letter. After that, the candidate has 60 days to apply for permanent residence under the applicable express entry immigration programs. It takes about 6 months for IRCC to process their application for permanent residence. So it's better for you to plan it ahead for your hiring. Now that we've covered a wide variety of avenues available to hire international talent, let's talk about the benefits. Before diving in, I'm going to ask you to consider the following statement. Hiring international talent is an investment, not a cost. Some businesses owners hesitate to hire internationally trained workers because they are concerned about how much it will cost. And it's true that there are costs, but the benefits far outweigh them. As well, the government of Canada is taking proactive measures to ensure the immigration system is flexible and there are programs available to attract and retain new talent. So why hire internationally trained workers to build your summer workforce? First of all, it will help you meet your labor needs. With the national labor shortage, increasing competition for available workers across all sectors, this is a significant advantage on its own. Internationally trained workers can connect you with other prospective employees within their community and connect your business to useful national or international organizations. Connection is very important to the tourism sector. We are often the backbones of our community. Many are the key economic driver and provide jobs to the public, like Peace by Chocolate does, for example. I think it's very important to keep in mind that building meaningful relationships with various community groups not only enriches our community, but also helps to raise your business profile and image and give you access to the resources and talents of others. You might also consider connecting with educational institutions, immigrant serving agencies, career development service providers, and various cultural groups to access to this talent pool. Again, this will build your network and could introduce you to prospective employees. International trained workers will also increase your competitiveness with a more diverse workforce. They bring fresh perspectives and ideas and may introduce new ways of doing business based on their own culture and experience. You'll see the positive impact both internally with your staff and externally with your customers and community. You'll gain access to new markets because international talents speak a variety of languages and are familiar with different cultures. This will help you attract new customers at the local level and at the international level. Tourism businesses that actually actively work to increase the diversity of their workforce and promote equity and inclusion are doing much better to attract and retain workers. And a diverse workforce will boost your business's reputation. As I mentioned earlier, it will also increase marketplace awareness and will provide a more diverse client base. So this is really the benefits of hiring international trained workers and also making sure your workplace is diverse and inclusive. So we are really nearing the end of our time together today. But before we start the Q&A, I'd like to discuss some of the resources we produced in our organization to help you building your seasonal workforce. So last year, we published the Now Hiring Guide, which is full of tips and resources to help employers attract and retain workers. This guide is made up of 2 sections: essential HR practices to attract, retain, and grow your workforce, and checklists to help you tackle key issues. So here is a QR code. You can scan the QR code and download the free hiring guide, or you can also access to our website to access the guide. And here are some of the screenshots from the guide. You can take a look. And this example really talks about the need for a blended workforce comprised of your anchor team, this information you can also find from the Now Hiring Guide. Another initiative I'd like to introduce is a fully updated attraction and retention campaign. We will launch it in 2 weeks. It's called Discover Tourism. And this Discover Tourism will tell success stories from a variety of niches, courting professionals who are established in their career and demonstrating the kinds of robust career paths people can pursue. And this program will support the sector to shift perspectives as what's possible within the sector. As we all know, tourism is a way to gain independence by pursuing what's meaningful to the public. And a central message about this program is really tourism can take you there. And this is another program we have, is the Propel program we launched months ago. It's all about connecting students with tourism jobs. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Simone so she can facilitate the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Jasmine. If anyone has any questions, please drop it in the Q&A box or the chat, and I can promote you to speaker if you'd like to speak verbally. You can also always send us your questions either to me or to Jasmine, and we can follow up after the session. So I'll just give it a minute or so. And also I want to mention, as we close, on April 11th, we will be joined by Philip Mondor, President and CEO of Tourism HR Canada, for session number 2, titled Building a Team That Stays. And we will explore the top 3 HR problems facing our industry, 7 practical steps that you can take to create a workplace that attracts and retains talent, and learn why investing in people is good for your business. So as we wait a little bit, I'm going to put registration in the chat for that session right now. There we go. Jasmine, did you want to drop your email in the chat just in case people wanted to follow up?
Sure, yeah.
Perfect. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but Jasmine's email is there. And we also include on our website the recording of this session. So those resources are always available to you if you'd like to review it, or again, have the contact information for Jasmine to reach out to any of the experts really that come on and present. I do see one question. So Jasmine, when looking for international employees that need to have specific skills, where's the best place to start? Example, farm work.
So I think, first of all, you'd really like to understand your own hiring plan and what are the key skills you are looking for. And then if you would like to reach out to international trained workers, as we mentioned that, first of all, you can connect with your local immigrant serving agencies. If you are, for example, if you are located in Ottawa, there are different type of Ottawa immigrant serving agencies available. They provide employment support services to newcomers, immigrants, and refugees, and they can certainly connect you and your job vacancies with workers. And normally, these immigrant serving agencies will provide free job matching services. And another thing, you could also post your job openings on Job Bank, like we shared the information on the slide, and then where you can put specific skills you need to certain positions, and then people can reply to your job openings and submit their resumes. And another way, as we mentioned, that you can connect with IECs in your region, and then they have a variety of networks to connect you with international trained workers, and they can also help you to building up your hiring plan or resources you need to hire and retain international trained workers.
Perfect. Well, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us or Jasmine once again. Her email is in the chat. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you,
time,
everybody.
everyone. Bye-bye.